Hi guys, Andy N, my friend Adrian Slatcher. Okay, Adrian, over to you, mate. You're going to do two extracts from this book, aren't you? Unless I've got this completely wrong, and a poem as
Yeah,
well.
that would be good.
Go for it,
Um,
mate.
the first extract is from the first story, The Cat. I'm not going to start at the beginning, but some way into the story. So all you need to know is that there's a guy in his flat on his own, and this cat suddenly appears out of nowhere. Over the next few weeks, the cat appeared only occasionally, and never as close as when I'd woken to find it looking at me on the bed that morning. It was as if I'd been tested and found wanting. I would catch a brief flash of tail, or sometimes just feel that it was there in the corner of a room watching me. But I was always too slow to react. I had an inkling that the cat was growing in size, but I couldn't be sure. During this period, I'd started seeing someone romantically. Most of this romancing had been in bars and restaurants, and once or twice I stayed over at the house where she lived. Adept at the excuses and prevarications that men are so good at, I'd managed to avoid her coming over to my flat until she got an early morning flight with work. And with my flat being so near to the airport, I could deny her no longer. I spent much of the week before she came over eradicating the worst excesses that accumulate unnoticed when a man lives on his own. Nothing if not comprehensive now that I was finally cleaning the flat. I was even running a wet towel over the tops of the skirting boards, and I happened to glance up and saw the cat looking at me from a couple of feet away. I swore under my breath. Meow, it replied. I reached over slowly so as not to startle it, and for the first time the cat stayed where it was. I touched the tip of its head and it arched its neck slightly. I scratched under its chin, noticing the white beard I'd seen previously was more pronounced. There was no doubt about it either. The cat was growing. It purred, and emboldened by this, I moved to pick it up. But this was too much for the cat, and it darted away, though this time it at least stayed in sight. It was still watching me, and as I reached over again, I elicited another purr. This game might have gone on for a while, but then the doorbell rang. I'd lost track of time, and my girlfriend was already here. I let her in, kissed her, apologised for the mess, and poured her a glass of wine. On some pretext, I went back into the bedroom, but unsurprisingly, the cat was gone. During the night, my girlfriend woke up a couple of times, her nose twitching as if she was allergic to something. When I drove to the airport first thing in the morning, her face was noticeably red and blotchy. I didn't want to say anything. You've not got any pets you've not told me about, she asked. No, of course not. Then I don't know what it is. I'm allergic to cat hair. No pets, I said unsteadily. Well, something, she said. Maybe it's some of the cleaning products, I said lamely. I had a bit of a splurge before you came round. She didn't seem convinced, and we drove the rest of the way to the airport in silence. When she returned from a trip, we'd meet anywhere other than my place and carried on for a few weeks. But when she split up with me, I have to say it wasn't unexpected. On my return to the flat, I wasn't surprised to find the cat waiting for me, somehow bigger than ever. Just you and me then, I said, and the cat purred in agreement before easing its way onto my lap for the first time.
Brilliant stuff. Have to ask you on that. You always say with writers, you do stories or poems or anything, there is some kind of element in you in each story. I
Oh
hope
yeah,
I hope that wasn't a true story.
yeah. I don't see dust basically.
Yeah, fair play, mate. Fair play. We're not commenting any further. We'll move straight on. Back to you, mate, for extract number two.
I did live near the airport as well, but yeah, no, it's interesting the way you do that, really. Yeah, and I thought I'd just read a little bit from. Right. So when are you ready? Sorry. Um, so this is from the story Static Caravans, and it's after the guy has left his home and gone to the Static Caravans at the. Sorry, I'll start again. This is from Static Caravans. Again, it's from halfway through the story, and the protagonist has left his job and his normal life and has gone to the coast. When I arrived at the site, it took a while to work out which caravan was mine. The summer season had ended, so there was no holidaymakers left, just a few long-term lets over the winter months. In the past, they'd been mostly taken by bird watchers or walkers, but now most tenants were like me. I'd chosen an older, shabbier caravan settled some way from the main cluster. There was a small garden area, marked out with white stones that could be turned into a vegetable patch. There would be some months till it bore fruit. Metaphorically speaking, it was root vegetables I intended to cultivate. The campsite shop had closed for winter, so I'd initially rely on what I brought with me: cartons of UHT milk, a large sack of porridge oats, tins and packages of various pulses, beans and meat. The less I had to do with other people, the better. But there were hawkers who would appear every few days, going from caravan to caravan, selling food they bought from the nearest co-op several miles inland to sell on at a profit. At first, they left me alone, perhaps not realising anyone had moved in. After a couple of weeks, they came round my way to see if anything I needed. I bought a few things, but the stack of notes I had withdrawn from my savings went down so slowly that I no longer worried that I might not have enough. When I asked for something in particular, they would make a note and promise it next time. They never had change, but if I overpaid, they would somehow remember it, so every fourth or fifth purchase I'd get for free. Although I intended to keep myself to myself, I'd worked out a rational backstory for why I'd come here, in case anyone asked. I had pictures of my imagined children stapled to the kitchenette, carefully cut from the pages of an old mail order catalogue, where the same bright children would appear throughout, modelling different clothes, bicycles, and outdoor sports gear. Carefully placed in frames, the two I'd chosen looked nothing like me, but they were of an age that meant they could have been mine. If at some point I had anyone round to the caravan, my cover as a divorcee, sadly estranged from his family, could be easily maintained. There were birds of prey circling over the headland, and I spent hours with a bird book that had been left in the caravan, trying to discern which bird was which from observing their wingspan as they dived out of the sky and into the sea, no doubt having seen their prey under the surface of the water.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a really great choice of like extract. That it shows the I don't like the word loneliness, but it shows the solitude of a lot of the characters in this book straight away with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really touching a bit about the photographing as well, which I think like is really, really sad that is. So it makes you want to hug him really, actually.
Yeah, well, I honestly, with that story, Static Caravans, I was looking at it and thinking, my God, you could turn this into like a mini series, couldn't you? Where,
Yeah.
you know, each episode was someone else coming to the beach, and
Yeah.
a bit like the Love Boat. We used to have that quite.
Love boat. I can't. Oh God, I want to remember that.
Yeah, used to half the episode used to be about the story of the character before they came on the Love Boat.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when we get you back on for an episode 2, level, maybe later in the year, we'll ask you about your dream castings of the story, these 6 stories. I'm not asking that off the top of your head because it'd get a bit random, but so anyway, you're going to us a poem, aren't you, to wrap up with today, Adrian? You said, aren't you?
Yeah, and as I say, Andy, if you want to, use it. So,
Yeah, please do, mate. Yeah, I'll shut up. Over to you, mate.
just bear with me a second. Typically, the page with the poem on has disappeared from my screen, but just bear with me a second. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I also write poetry, and I'm going to read a poem that was published online at Ink, Sweat and Tears last year, and it's called Mechanical Bear. Mechanical Bear. I would give you a mechanical bear and watch it move across the tabletop. Soon the mechanism would go, poor bear, but you'd improvise and make it climb walls. No bear in history had made it as far. The first bear in space, the first in Atlantis, impervious to any restrictions other than your imagination. Later on, we would do the things together that both of us loved. Good food, watching sport, and neither of us would ever mention the bear. When they finally pack up my life, they'll find a box in the attic of all that mattered. Love letters, degree certificates, faded photographs, and the mechanical bear with its workings broke.
Wonderful stuff indeed, and really short and quite to the point. That, and obviously, I'm prepared for your short stories. We agreed with this last second, so tell us about what made you want to do that. Where this poem came from.
I suppose I write two types of poems really. Ones that are obviously specific things from my own life, you know, and I was talking to someone yesterday and saying there are only so many poems you can write about sitting in a coffee shop watching the world go by. But the second type of poems I write do have a little bit of, I suppose, an imaginative edge. And I like to think they're versions of maybe a better me or a different me that maybe got a different life. And so Mechanical Bear was an idea that came out. I think I'd seen some pictures, or I've been talking to my parents, or just remembering things from the past, and how when you're a child you fixate on a particular thing, often for it might be just a very small period of time, for a couple of weeks, and it's the most important thing in your world, and then you forget it, and a bit like in the film Toy Story, you put it up in the loft, don't you, or it breaks, etc. And I think for some reason this idea came to me, and so it's an imaginative poem really. It's you know, it's not my own life or my own bear, but I like the idea of animatronic toys. You know, the things that are kind of, you wind them up and they work, and then at some point the mechanism breaks. I just think that was a really lovely metaphor, really, for what's important in our life. Clearly, one of my great pieces of art that I really love is obviously the film Citizen Kane, and you know, there's an element of Rosebud about that in a poem like this.
Yeah, no, I do. I agree with you completely. No, good choice, and it's a great way to wrap up today, Adrian. So I want to thank you today, mate. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. So like I said, definitely back on when the next bit of music's ready, and I look forward to it, mate. So thank you again, Adrian, today, and good luck with the book, mate, as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy, and hope to see you in the flesh at some point soon.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, we've been too long, mate. Way too long. So anyway, guys and girls, that's it for today for Spoken Label. Thank you to the wonderful Adrian. As Don Callis over at AW Wrestling says, stay safe and stay over. And we will see you all next time.